you knock it off right now, it's gone! Moshahidi with room, launches! Kaboom! From another time zone. This is comical, cartoonish, and downright ridiculous. And welcome back for Season 2, Episode 17 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Last week's episode started off with the MLB All-Star rosters. We knew everything except the pitchers. Now we know those too, and I'm strongly suspecting that the starting pitchers are gonna be Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal. They've both had their schedules moved around a little bit, and it looks like the managers have that in mind. Then the Dolphins traded Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith to Pittsburgh for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And in NBA free agency, it's clear that anything goes right now. Dame Lillard got cut, DeAndre Ayton to the Lakers. Other guys, Miles Turner, Duncan Robinson, a lot of players I didn't even get to, like Lonzo Ball, Kristaps Porzingis, they have all found new homes either in free agency or via trade. Seriously, the finals ended on June 22nd, and the ticker at the bottom of the screen on ESPN has been getting bombarded ever since with the NBA. And this week, let's lead off with one of the most wholesome things you'll hear about this week, Bat Boys in the MLB All-Star Game. I must admit, I had never heard of such a thing. I had never considered that anyone might be able to, petition for their bat boy to go to the All-Star Game. Then, of course, I read into it, and I found that they only started doing this last year. Now I wonder what they used to do. Did they just take whoever was the bat person of the host ballpark? And I don't know. It only feels right, though, that the best team in baseball throughout the first half would be the one to get their bat boy chosen in the American League. From an MLive article I read this week, Frankie Boyd has been working with the Tigers since 2017, doing a lot of things all over the ballpark, as tends to happen so often in sports. Now, apparently the voting was actually open on MLB.com, but I'm not sure, was it at the same time as the normal fan voting or not? Somebody help me out on this. I voted a number of times, right? And I didn't see it there, but I wish I would have so that I could say I was a part of this movement. So Frankie was the pick in the American League, and the National League chose the Phillies' Adam Cronali. I think that's how you say it. I also read that the Phillies sent in a highlight reel of Adam that included him cleanly fielding a chopped foul ball from Kyle Schwarber that was headed toward the dugout and that could have hit somebody, so he was sort of a hero. The Tigers are now going to be tied for the most All-Stars with the Dodgers. However, if you count their bat boy, they're going to be out on top. Zach McKinstry, their super utility man, was named as an injury replacement too. This really speaks to exactly what I said last week. Team success is one of the most important factors people consider when they're voting. Unsurprisingly, players were all praising and razzing Frankie the Bat Boy, right? Saying they had a lot of laughs about it, and that, of course, he's one of the hardest working Bat Boys and most versatile, and he really keeps things moving exactly as they should. Both teams, the Tigers and Phillies, put some graphics on their social pages too, which was one more nice touch to a fantastic gesture of fan and staff service. My hat's off to all of them. One of the funnier ESPN stories I've read recently, and this will be a quick one, we all think writing headlines is easy, when I'm here to tell you it's not. This headline read, Eli Manning passes on buying ownership stake in Giants. In the first line, Eli is quoted saying, "It's too expensive for me," which of course would have been a whole lot funnier had they put it in the title. The thing is, though, I'm pretty sure he's 100% right, even as a man who made $232 million during his playing career and who has a net worth estimated at around $160 million right now. Back in February, the Giants started shopping about a 10% stake in their franchise, and Forbes puts their total valuation at about $7.3 billion. Even if you're NFL royalty, like Eli, you would need a big group of owners all around you to make a move like that for just, again, a 10% split. The Commanders were the last team to be fully sold back in 2023, and that was for a cool $6 billion. I believe the Broncos were before that in 2022, and then beyond that, I can't hardly recall. We often think of athletes as the ones who are getting the richest in sports. But if you look into a lot of the information that's perfectly publicly available out there, just Google it, you'll learn that that's not the case at all. Now that those first couple of stories have ideally gotten you a bit warmed up, let's have Fantasy Football Friday. I don't think I'm going to number these anymore as I don't do them every single week, and I wouldn't really know how to continue or discontinue that across seasons. The number one reason I feel okay doing this is because there is an actual live NFL game this month. The Chargers and Lions are going to play in the Hall of Fame game on July 31st. Then, if you'll recall, the switch to the 17-game regular season cut the preseason back to 3 games, and just 11 days after the end of that preseason, we'll have the regular season kickoff with the Eagles and Cowboys. I love ranking things too, and getting into the weeds and looking at the experts' rankings and synthesizing and the hot takes. I love all of those, right? I had a successful fantasy season last year, and I have to credit kicker and defense choices for getting me there. That's what we're going to rank first. So everyone wants to draft their kicker and their defense/special teams last, even after filling out their whole bench sometimes. Please don't do that. I will always advocate for trying to find the most matchup-proof option at each. Although matchup-proof does not actually exist, that is the big caveat. But with those disclaimers, let's figure out who you should draft and maybe where. The average fantasy draft has about 15 to 17 rounds, so I'll split the difference and assume you have 16 picks to use. I've always played on the ESPN fantasy app, and that's how many picks those drafts have. So I want to start with kickers over defenses for no particular reason, and I just want to tell you that Brandon Aubrey is the number one option and needs to go off the board by round 9, but that wouldn't be a whole lot of fun, would it? In all seriousness, he is far and away my number one kicker in fantasy for this year. He will almost certainly be the first kicker ever to make a 70-yard field goal. I speculated on that multiple times last year. He made the longest field goal in the league this year at 65 yards. He went perfect on extra points at 30 of 30, had the most field goal attempts. There is absolutely no better choice in my mind. Funny enough, he benefited from the Cowboys' offense struggling and having a ton of injuries because that held them back from scoring touchdowns, and they were awful in the red zone. After Dak Prescott went down with that hamstring injury, Aubrey was their best offensive weapon not named CeeDee Lamb. Seriously. There are a few kickers like the Bills' Tristan Bass or the Lions' Jake Bates that are actually held back from being more valuable in fantasy because their offenses are too good. They score too many touchdowns. And they're so aggressive on fourth down, too, for what it's worth. For a good fantasy kicker, you want sort of a middle-of-the-pack offensive team that'll move the ball enough to get in range a lot. Playing in a dome is always a bonus. If not a dome, then at least having nice weather outside for your home games. And so with Brandon Aubrey at the clear number 1, who does that leave among the top 5 kicker options? My number 2, it's the Buccaneers' Chase McLaughlin. I loved the Bucs' offensive balance last year. 4th in scoring, 3rd in total yards, 6th in rushing yards, 3rd in passing yards. Unfortunately, their perennial All-Pro tackle, Tristan Wirfs, is going to miss the start of the year after he had knee surgery in the offseason. He'll be on the physically unable to perform list, but pretty much everything else is intact from that really good unit last year. McLaughlin hit 30 of 32 kicks last year, 54 out of 56 extra points, that is a ton of extra points, and was K4 for the year, plus his home games are in Tampa. At number 3, it's the Steelers' Chris Boswell. I rode Boswell's coattails to 1 championship and 1 runner-up finish in my 2 leagues. He was K1 by a wide margin. He also went 100% on extra points and was 13 of 15 from 50-plus yards. That was just 1 less make from that distance than Brandon Aubrey, who set the all-time record. Pittsburgh weather in the back half of the year is rough, but Boswell might be the best bad weather kicker of all time. My number 3, and a popular number 3 choice by experts, is the Chargers' Cameron Dicker. Fun fact, just found out on his Pro Football Reference page that he was born in Hong Kong. That has nothing to do with fantasy football, but it's kind of interesting. Anyway, he tied with Boswell and the Texans' Kaimi Fairbairn for the most made field goals with 41. He had a long of 59. He also gets very favorable weather at home, and last year was not any kind of aberration for him. He also made 31 out of 33 field goals in 2023, plus Jim Harbaugh teams aren't known to be particularly aggressive on fourth down. He should have plenty of opportunities. Moving down to number 4, give me the Super Bowl champ kicker. Jake Elliott ironically had his worst year as a pro last year, while the rest of the team all around him continued to dominate. Elliott went 28 out of 36, or 77.8%. You wouldn't think that's bad, and then you compare it to the rest of the league, and I think he was something like 7th from the bottom in percentage. I find it super, super likely that he'll bounce back this year because he was said to be dealing with an injury for pretty much the whole year that we don't really know anything about. He still has a dominant team all around him, a great offense, and will have plenty of opportunities. And rounding out the top 5, give me the Dolphins' Jason Sanders. I am happy to only have 3 out of the 5 here be good weather kickers, but there's probably not a more favorable place to kick than Miami. He'd be upgraded even further if Hard Rock Stadium there was a dome. It's not. But 37 of 41 field goals this year, and as long as Tua can stay healthy and in the lineup every single week, which has been a massive struggle, they're still a very good offense. One honorable mention, the Broncos' Will Lutz, again because of the environment. It is super well documented how the air at Mile High lets people hit bombs. So, seriously, draft a kicker. It doesn't have to be one of these 5, and I can guarantee you that there will be top 5 scoring kickers in the league this year that didn't make my list, but these are great bets. If you've already gotten a starter at every skill position and a couple of good backups that can play your flex spot, then I truly believe round 10 to 11 could be an okay time to pick a kicker. You will be one of the first. It's going to depend on the depth of your league too, but if you can count on double digits from both your kicker and your defense every single week with occasional, let's say, 20 bombs sprinkled in there, it's surprising how often that translates to winning weeks. Now on to defenses and special teams, where no team can be completely matchup proof either, but you still want to take a draftable one into most weeks. The defense I would draft number 1, it's a really tough question. It's a close call, and I want to go back to the team that finished number 1 in scoring last year. I think I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. It's so tricky to pull out just a couple of factors from the entirety of a defense's stats, their depth chart, their outlook, to say that they're going to be the best. Things that the Texans definitely have going for them. D'Amico Ryans at head coach. He is one of the best lead-by-example defensive coaches there is. He's 40 years old, and he could probably get out on the field and take snaps this year if he had to. He is in fantastic shape. They were 6th in fewest yards allowed, 4th most sacks with 49, and they have 2 stud edge rushers. Will Anderson had 11 sacks last year in only 14 games. Danielle Hunter had 12, with both guys getting some Defensive Player of the Year votes. Derek Stingley Jr. is their top corner. He was first-team All-Pro and also got Defensive Player of the Year votes. Plus, he is now insanely rich. He's got plenty of incentive to go out and earn that money. With all of those guys being major disruptors, they were 2nd in the league with 19 interceptions. Last thing going their way is playing in the AFC South, a very weak division that lets them ideally beat up on the Jags, Colts, and Titans twice every year. This won't be a super popular choice, but defense is tricky, and the top one every year varies heavily. I love what the Texans are set up to do this year. At number 2, I will have to go with the top scoring fantasy unit from last year, the Denver Broncos. Patrick Surtain II is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year and has been one of the top corners in the league from the moment he hit the field in 2021. Also, 63 sacks in 17 games, 9 more than anybody else. Hello? They really get them from everywhere, too. They had 6 guys with 5 or more sacks. Surtain might be the only true household name on this defense, but they have one of the top defensive coordinators in the game, in my opinion, Vance Joseph. He is an attacker. He is super aggressive, and he helped them lead the league with 5 defensive touchdowns last year. He maximizes everyone's abilities. He puts everyone in places to succeed. Plus, they drafted a fantastic chess piece this year, Jahdae Barron from Texas. I had him mocked 13th overall. He slid a tiny bit to 21st. But Jahdae Barron, Riley Moss, their white corner, and Surtain, that should be the best group of DBs in the league or very close to it. To add on to their DB room, they also signed Talanoa Hufanga away from the 49ers, who is as close as we've seen to Troy Polamalu in a safety, probably since Troy retired. Good players at all 3 levels. They scored 10.5 fantasy points a game last year. That makes them the number 2 draft target defense for 2025. Coming in at number 3, give me the Minnesota Vikings. They were 2nd in fantasy scoring last year, and it wasn't because they didn't give up yards. In fact, they weren't so good in the yardage department. However, They did everything else well. 24 interceptions, that is an astronomical number. That was the most in the league by 5. They forced 33 total turnovers, which was tied for the most with the Steelers, and they were tied for 4th in sacks. Those are the plays that matter. After the Vikings, we'll have to get to the Super Bowl champs, and again here at number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles. Their super team has a few notable departures this year. Darius Slay and James Bradbury at corner, Brandon Graham off the edge. They still have studs on rookie contracts everywhere else, though. Zero reason for concern with them that I can think of, except maybe Super Bowl hangover. They were 7th in fantasy scoring last year. They forced a league-leading 18 fumbles, and they're actually one of the few defenses that does care about yardage. I remembered them being good, but before researching this episode, I didn't remember them being this good. They allowed 33 fewer total yards per game than any other team. 278.4 yards a game total for the season. That's wild. And rounding out my top 5 fantasy defenses for 2025, I want the Pittsburgh Steelers. The one caveat is they absolutely must re-sign TJ Watt or they will be thrown in the dumpster. No thank you. Between Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay, they made probably the 2 biggest corner acquisitions in the whole league this offseason. Both of those guys are probably going to end up Hall of Famers, and I'd also go so far as to call them the 2 most accomplished corners in the game today. They've combined for 13 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pro nods. TJ Watt is worth literally like 3 good edge rushers all by himself. I mean, he's unbelievable every single year. Led the league in forced fumbles last year with 6, 7 straight Pro Bowls for him. What more do you need to say? Cameron Hayward is running it back again for at least one more year on the defensive line. He is a living legend and a future Hall of Famer. They might be old. In fact, they are old. But they are still very good, even after trading Minkah Fitzpatrick to get Ramsey. Plus, the Pittsburgh weather does create some home field advantage for them, and it always tends to keep games low scoring. Low scoring games on offense means high scoring games for fantasy defenses. So do with all of this what you will. Draft kicker and defense with your very last picks if you want to, but be prepared to be frustrated when they combine for 8 points and you needed 20 out of them. Or try to play a complete guessing game each week on who might be okay with what kind of matchup. These are the kinds of picks I'm going to start to make, again, around, say, round 10 or 11, before almost anybody else does, especially if I like some of the bench pieces that I have already and think they could play my flex. Go forth and kill your draft however you see fit, though. Lastly, I just want to check in on the MLB home run chase again. It is shaping up to be a true sort of Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds routine between Ohtani, Cal Raleigh, and Aaron Judge. If they were all in the American League, I think we might have ended up with one of the most split MVP votes ever. No, home runs are not the only way to create value, obviously. I mean, Ohtani is now dominating as a starting pitcher too, but all of these guys are insanely good at hitting home runs. As of Thursday, 7-10, before any of the night games have been played, the Mariners and Yankees have 4 more home games before the All-Star break, the Dodgers have 3, and this whole trio has at least 31 home runs. Remember, the number to beat before the break is 39, quite unshockingly by Barry Bonds. That record has stood since 2001, and a switch-hitting catcher has a legitimate chance to at least tie it. Ooh, I want to see this so bad. Raleigh has 36, Judge has 34, and Ohtani has 31 at time of recording. I'm hoping this turns into the best home run chase of all time down the stretch. The most famous home run chase that most people would probably point to was in 1998 between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, at least one of whom was pharmaceutically augmented, if you will. Mark McGwire hit 70, Sosa came in at a measly 66, which is a mere 3rd place all-time for a single season. All of these 3 are going to fall short of that kind of number. In fact, I don't expect any of them to hit 60. That said, I really want it to be as close as humanly possible. I would love for all of them to go for at least 50. I don't believe there's been a season with 3 or more 50 home run hitters since the 2001 season. What a list it was that year, too. You had Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds. Of course, there's questions about those 2. Sammy Sosa as well. Never caught taking anything, but you never know. And Luis Gonzalez. As far as I could tell, those 4 was the all-time record for 50 home run hitters in a season. And the Phillies' Kyle Schwarber or the Diamondbacks' Eugenio Suarez could both get to 50 if they have great second halves. They're both at 29 coming into play today. Will any one of the players mentioned here compete in the home run derby on Monday night? Only Cal Raleigh so far that we know of. I think Suarez could still decide to, Schwarber could still decide to, but the field is mostly set now. I really hope Raleigh comes up, switch hits in the derby, and just absolutely blows people away. Be a fan, enjoy a fantastic home run race with a highly unlikely front runner down the stretch. That's my advice to you. And that's another week down. Check out all my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, @TheVoiceOfTanner, X, just Voice of Tanner, YouTube, the whole thing spelled out with the spaces. Leave a like, comment, and share. Catch you next week. This has been Season 2, Episode 17 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, no.
Oh, you knock it off right now. It's gone. Moshahidi with room launches. Kaboom! From another time zone. This is comical, cartoonish, and downright ridiculous.